Today's video is all about Algorand, builders of the most powerful and sustainable blockchain. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what, let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. And the question is Algorand an opportunity? Guys, today we're going to be doing a deep dive. We're going to be looking into Algorand, figuring out what it has, what it offers, what value proposition should we be bullish on. And as usual, we're going to be taking a retail perspective in the sense that we're going to be using the main website as our main platform to navigate the project, ensuring that the team has provided all the little details to get us those fundamentals so that we can be bullish. And ultimately, the retailer, we don't want friction, we want mass adoption, and we want to be able to do this research in a very frictionless way, in a way that is transparent, easy to understand, and ultimately easy to become really bullish on the project. So we're going to be kind of scraping through various websites, of course. We're hoping to stick with the official documentation that the team provided, and we're going to be, taking a full, well-rounded approach here, talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, of course. Let's begin looking at this website. I'm just going to start off by saying that Algorand seems to have two websites, right? And this for me is a little bit, I don't know which one to stick with. So what I did was I bounced back and forth to both of them. We got algorand.co, and then we got Algorand Technologies.com, which is another website. They're both great. They both have different have information pertaining to Algorand, of course. We can pick and choose out of what we find, and that's what exactly I'm going to do. All right, guys, so let's continue. Let's see what's going on here. We can see some good intro graphics here. Start your journey, some statistics, circulating supply, block time, network time, forks, daily active addresses, and so on. So good data here. Building on Algorand for devs that want support, stake and collect rewards. So right off the bat, we got staking capabilities as a proof of stake consensus or blockchain consensus mechanism. It definitely offers that passive income capability, and obviously getting involved in the network using staking options. Get a wallet and explore dApps. They got a wallet and discover real world case studies. So how they are actually using Algorand in the real world, which leads me to this conversation about Algorand and its implementation. Now, what I've noticed through my research and digging around through Algorand is definitely has a presence. Its presence mostly is in Europe and in Latin America, whereas we would expect to have a little bit more influence in the Western world and in North America and such. But the reality is it's not necessary. In the end, they've tapped into a marketplace, particularly again with Europe and Latin America, and if they're penetrating that market, let it be. And it looks like they're having some great success in that part of the world. What does that mean from a marketing perspective? The reality is I think a lot of North Americans are left in the shade and don't really know what Algorand is building behind the scenes in other parts of the world. This is a perception that I picked up along the way as I was doing research, so let's just keep that in mind as I continue going on. Algorand is an energy efficient, quantum secure, so this is a mouthful right here. So energy efficient, the way it runs its blockchain and consensus, it uses less energy. Quantum secure, which means that it is future proof for quantum computing. For those individuals that are thinking that quantum computing is going to take over the world and cause a lot of issues with security, well, Algorand is stating here that they are secure and ready to go. Single layer blockchain with instant finality, guys. This is one step level to speed. actual finalities, near instant or an instant. That's what they're claiming here, which is great. Consistently high throughput and low fees. Sounds like an amazing deal here, what they got going on. And to be honest, Algorand has been around for a bit. And, since the beginning, since, we've been talking about Algorand and the communities and the space in general has had time to digest what Algorand is providing. We've seen Algorand mature and mature in a very traditional and strong way. It's not a high flying type of project in the sense that it's all shiny and hyped up, but it is a foundational type of thing where we see this project being built from the ground up, not from up all the way down to the ground, in the sense that they're building a strong foundation and not focusing too much on the buzz, right? That leads me to believe that they're very grounded in creating something that is sustainable and that can be depended on, right? And for us, we know that ultimately when we're talking about finance or talking about assets or anything like that, we need dependability, right? So Algorand right now, I feel like that's their stance, even from a marketing perspective, very institutional like, and so on, giving it a sense of being able to depend on what Algorand is building. So high quality, no buzz, very pull strategy type of marketing, which I do understand and appreciate. A lot of degens in this space won't appreciate it, but when you start appreciating it, it's because institutions have adopted. Okay, let's move on from that concept. Let's continue going on. Let's see what kind of message they are trying to give us here. Algorand in the real world, Lofty. So Lofty provides fractional home ownership. I'm going to see a pivot. We're going to see a pivot from Algorand talking about real world asset narrative. I think that they're trying to permeate within that narrative as well, alongside a lot of other L1 blockchains and projects. They're trying to get involved in the real world asset tokenization, which we know is a hot narrative. It is a good one, no doubt. Folks Finance has the highest total value lock TVL of any DeFi protocol on Algorand and is actively rapidly down a path of powerful integration. So it has DeFi so far. We see a bit of DeFi, real world asset. Let's keep going on. LabTrace uses Algorand blockchain to authenticate and verify medical data. So a little bit of DeSci. With DeSci is a little bit of a buzz right now. We see it picking up and catching some bids. So it's not bad and very institutional as well. So we could see that formal part of use case right here on within DeSci. And whole chain end-to-end traceability technology enables companies to collect verifiable data step by step on supply chain. So supply chain management type of software solution. And these are very, very mainstream, quote unquote, mainstream here in the crypto space narratives. Like, there are narratives that are coming up and their use cases that we are looking forward to see proper implementation. And Algorand addressing these very traditional, very strong type of use cases is very powerful for Algorand. So I do appreciate the topics. We don't see gaming here. You're not seeing AI agents here. You're seeing, things that actual can be used. Again, Algorand in the real world. Businesses across the globe are leveraging the Algorand blockchain to deliver efficiency, impact, and opportunity. You can see their strategy here. Their strategy is not meant to be buzzy. It's meant to be actual utility for real world case scenarios. Guys, you got to admit, like, their strategy is quite interesting. It's not very common across this space to go from this perspective. And you'll see how it's all going to come together in a second based on who the team is and everything and things like that. Staking rewards have arrived on Algorand. Okay, staking is a common thing in the space. Obviously, you're earning passive income by offering liquidity. Algorand is designed for decentralizations. It's pure proof of stake, which is a very interesting concept. A consensus mechanism makes participating extremely accessible, and now, for the first time ever, you can collect rewards for running nodes or staking Algo, doing your part to secure the network. We're going to talk about their consensus just a little bit. I'm not going to get too technical here. Obviously, this is not a technical deep dive. It is a crypto deep dive where we're going to touch upon all the main aspects of a crypto project, and we're kind of build a picture around that. Okay, so we'll talk about these things in a second. There's two main parts about their consensus that I find interesting, and that kind of separates it from other layer one blockchains that have similar consensus. Can a blockchain do that? Algorand can. So watch the video. I'm sure there's a lot to learn here what Algorand can do. Participate in the network and community governance. So there is a governance. It's not a complete DAO. They're just governed, like you own tokens, you have the ability to vote, and they do have their xgov guides, which is part of their platform. And I'm gonna just show you quickly what their platform looks like, and you can do proposals and participate and vote and so on and so forth. So they got the governance portal and the xgov portal. Go check it out because they do have a layer of a governance. So token utility here includes governance. Okay, that's good because as we go through tokenomics, you'll notice that there are some tokens allocated to the governance model per se. Okay, so this is something that we will definitely touch upon in a second. Partners, lots of good partners, guys. You gotta admit, like, we gotta really focus on the fact that their partners are going to be individuals or businesses or corporations or institutions that are very either academia or literally institutions, right? Individual identities that are trying to do things from more of a subtle business approach. So you can see Algorand Foundation forges partnerships with organizations across the globe to continue to the advancement of the overall blockchain industry and to drive adoption of the Algorand blockchain. So their focus on partnership is not necessarily partnering with other blockchains or other technologies to enhance their current technology. They're an L1, right? So they should be providing the one-stop solution from a blockchain perspective. So what their partnerships are is like blockchain associations. We got T-Hub, we have Diff, which handles identity, and there's many others, guys. I would highly suggest that you take a look a little into this a little bit more, but there is a lot of institutional types of relationships here, which are obviously good because if you look at their marketing, that's exactly what they're trying to spearhead. Okay, so very open wallet foundation, very typical foundational type of relationships here. Good on. That's good. Latest news. Let's keep on going down. Let's see. We got some news here. Blockchain-based loyalty program. Algorand powers the tower from the world chess. Roadmap building real-world use. Okay, I have the roadmap. We'll talk about the roadmap and where they're going next. Algorand Foundation announces launch of wormhole native token transfers, enabling multi-chain interoperability for Algorand. That's one of the things that I had in mind here about Algorand is that based on its L1 and its smart contract platform, I don't see its implementation or its focus on cross-chain capabilities. But then based on this relationship, I feel like they're trying to navigate that realm to start to bring Algorand to that schematic where blockchains are no longer a point of friction or a way of differentiating one another, in the sense that now that they can cooperate within the industry is very useful for Algorand because it could attract liquidity across other chains, which is great obviously for Algorand, and that interoperability enhances its ecosystem growth significantly. So it is good to see. Let's see what this arrow does. Nothing, or maybe it does or doesn't. I don't even know. Let's see. Let's go back. Okay, so that's that. Let's see. So we got a couple of other good things. Okay, we'll talk about Para Wallet. Look at that. That's pretty good. So we'll talk about a lot of what they have in the roadmap, and we'll take a look at their socials, their X account, to see what they've been yapping about in the last little while. And that's the thing, we got to keep up with what's current MasterCard. There's a lot of good relationships, and again, very institutional type of relationships that they got. How Algorand enables solutions at scale. So again, back to the concepts of what makes Algorand. So its speed was its main value proposition from the get-go. Okay, 10,000 TPS, point of sale speed that users expect. So point of sale is essentially, it's fast enough for you to do microtransactions just even by going to the store and using the blockchain for that purpose to make purchases. So that's great. An instant finality, no rollbacks, no partitioning, no uncertainties. Like honestly, like the way they are positioning themselves is to be one of those those blockchains that's dependable and can be used for quick transactions. And then you have proof of stake, pure proof of stake, which is their proprietary blockchain agreement infrastructure. They don't want to call it consensus per se. They want to say it's like an agreement. Block by block agreement ensures data integrity. So block by block agreement. Now, there's some aspects about this pure proof of stake, which we'll talk about in a second. But nonetheless, it is quite interesting, and it's how they are differentiating themselves from competition. Now, this is what got me to that conclusion of interoperability. So, programming languages and tools, So, yes, we do know those, Python and TypeScript and more, right? But it looks like Python and TypeScript are their main languages. Now, this is how are we writing, smart contracts using these languages? Well, although they are popular and common, it doesn't really matter in the sense, in the sense is that this space is highly reliant on EVM compatibility, and based on that, Solidity is the main language of this space, and it is what it is, guys. We have to really come to terms with that reality. Ethereum being the largest ecosystem with the most amount of applications and DeFi and different projects and so on, that language has become the industry standard over time. And this is why we're seeing a lot of blockchains want to become EVM compatible, because if a developer is going to create an Ethereum-based project, a dApp of some sort, written and using Solidity contract, ultimately that contract can be deployed on any blockchain, and that way there's less friction and so on for interoperability across multi-chain, multi-chain environment that crypto has become. So there's a little bit, of thinking here that needs to be done, and obviously a wormhole bridge would be amazing, to tap into different narratives, blockchains. Let's see how we go with that. Drive to decentralizations. Thousands of validators keep the network secure. This is an important concept because as of proof of stake, we run the risk of having a power struggle, with individuals that have a lot on the network and control the network based on the volume of tokens that they hold or coins that they hold. Well, Algorand has found an interesting solution, or a fair solution, to kind of like skew that, to keep it in check. And we're going to talk about that, of course, when we get into the consensus, because their consensus is highly reliant on how the network chooses a validator, and how it chooses a validator fairly. Okay, so this is important. So we'll touch upon that in a second as we go through. Connect and learn. There's a little bit of video tutorials connecting with the fam. As you can see, you can go Algo fam and figure them out. Find events if you want to get involved, and become an Algo insider if you want to get a newsletter of sorts. And they got a bunch of socials that you can check out, which I'm glad to see regardless. Okay, so that's the main page. Now this is one of them, of course, Algorand.co. The other one is algorandtechnologies.com. Now, this is where I get a little bit like, why do we have two websites? I really couldn't figure out, to be honest. One of the websites I just stumbled upon throughout my research, and I don't even know where I got the link, to be honest. Could have been across some of their socials, maybe X or something. But that's not the point. The point is that why is there two websites? I don't really see the need. It just brings a point of confusion. But nonetheless, there must be a reason. And this is a trademark logo here, so that's also interesting. And as you can see, the introduction to the project, that L1 blockchain, of course, let us unlock the power of Algorand for you. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we could discuss, which I'm going to try to go through the main concepts. And you can see that even this website's nicely structured, in the sense that it's almost like a deep dive. The mission, the founder, the team, the technology, what they got going on, and so on, which is not bad. But unfortunately, I couldn't get everything I needed from one site. So I'm going to be bouncing around, not only from their sites that they have, plural, but also third parties, to kind of dig a little bit into, particularly some of the metrics. Let's get into this right here. So this is a very, this page right here is really good. So you can see that there's a lot of information, okay, that you can potentially learn exactly what Algorand is trying to achieve here, solving the blockchain trilemma. So it was able, the trilemma comes in three parts, like you can imagine: scalability, security, and decentralization. And as you go through these three categories, and the developer or an engineer creates this software solution, to a blockchain that, self-sufficient blockchain that does its thing. It basically has three issues to deal with. Again, these are them right here. Now, if a blockchain would focus on scalability, they'd be able to scale quickly and bring in a lot of individuals all at once and this and that, and be able to transact quicker, and blocks are produced in less than 3 seconds. You can see that they address scalability, but the issue is that typical blockchains of the past, once they focus on, let's say, scalability, other parts of the other two parts of the trilemma suffer, like security and decentralization. And if a blockchain would focus on decentralization, for example, right, they would lose the ability to keep, let's say, the blockchain as secure. So there's this give and take, there's this push and pull, there's this trade-off that happens within these three categories. Well, Algorand was able to kind of find a balance and solve the trilemma. No, this trilemma concept was the main concept of previous cycles. Now we're seeing a lot of blockchains, come out hot with this idea that they've solved the trilemma. So Algorand is definitely one of them. And if you read through it, you'll see that, again, speed. They were able to achieve speed, basic payments. Algorand can, in fact, process thousands of multi-party contracts per second. Okay, so that's that. And then you go down here in security. This is why they designed Algorand to be secure against both protocol attacks and network partition attacks. We believe the security of the network level will be increasingly important. Today's adversaries are happy to exploit software bugs. Of course they are. But once this is all fixed, okay, and so on. So what we have to understand is that there's some things that they've introduced. And once you learn about the team, which we're going to talk about the team in a second, especially the founder, guys, the talent behind this project, particularly, let's focus on the founder because he's a world-renowned individual in the fields of computer science, mathematics, and so on. We're definitely bringing a lot of talent to the table here. So seeing these software solutions come out with all these little details to improve the technologies of the past that we've been accustomed to when the trilemma was a bigger thing is great to see. It's great to see some of these technologies. So yeah, let's continue going on. Decentralization. Obviously, there's a lot of nodes. They have the more nodes the particular participate in consensus, the more impenetrable the chain is. And that's something that's a fact. We've realized that that's the case. So they have a lot here, guys. Go check it out. It is a blockchain that allows a lot of people, anybody, to participate. It's not centralized in the sense that it requires some heavy-duty computing or very expensive computing, or barriers to entry is difficult of any sort. Guys, this is part of their mindset, is to allow the decentralization to flourish based on easy access and frictionless participation. So there's a lot of good stuff here with Algorand, as you can see. So this page right here is spot on. And then if you go to the agreement, not consensus, they try to differentiate the terminology between agreement and consensus. And part of what we're talking about here, of course, is the pure proof of stake. So I'm going to do my best to kind of summarize what's being said here so that you don't have to go through it. But there's a couple of things here that I want to talk about. Actually, right on this page, there is one term. I want to see if I can find the second one. But you can see they have the Byzantine agreement. Okay, the Byzantine agreement, I'm going to do my best to explain it without having to read this. It's basically an agreement. And what happens here is it ensures that even if a certain portion, particularly, let's say, 1/3 of, or a portion of, basically the participants that are working to provide consensus or agreement, or in this case, node holders, right, that participate within the network, let's say they go rogue. Let's say they fail, or they go rogue and they're malicious, or whatever the case is. It doesn't matter. What happens is the blockchain can still achieve agreement and consensus regardless, because the majority still is valid. Right? So this is the thing, like, even if the part of the network fails a little bit, there is this backup notion that it doesn't require the entire participation of the entire consensus group, or the individuals participating within the network. It's not necessary for all of them to be valid. Let's put it that way, because sometimes validity is important, right? They can go rogue, they can definitely fail, and so on. And this is what I find very interesting. Now, and in addition to that, based on their mechanism, is that it's very random. So they try to keep things democratic in a sense, because usually in a proof of stake mechanism, the more tokens you hold, the more power you have, the more voting power you have. In this case, with Algorand, it is somewhat still like that. However, there's a layer of randomness included. So you have consensus that relies on randomness, in the sense that they choose a random node, right, to validate the transactions. But obviously there's a little bit of a skew, or higher probability given to those individuals that hold more. It doesn't mean that those ones are always going to be chosen, but what it means is that based on this lottery system, you have a little bit more of a chance of being chosen because you hold more. Guys, obviously there has to be a reward structure for those individuals that, take more risk and stake more and put a little bit more into securing the network. That has to be done, because then there's no capitalistic incentive. But at least there's some balancing out here, not like other blockchains where if you hold a lot, you run the whole network. Unfortunately, that usually provides a level of centralization that proof of stake, unfortunately does not cure on its own. So I'm glad to see that they have the bentonite agreement here, not only to ensure that the network stays straight and narrow when things, kind of go rogue, right? But also their whole approach to democratizing the consensus by giving everybody an opportunity to earn and to participate in these agreements. Okay, so hopefully I did a good job kind of explaining here. I'm sure there's somebody else there that can do much, much better than me. But, from the last 48 hours of research, I think I understood, right? Perhaps this consensus process is acceptable, but it certainly is not clean as what they do here. And another thing that I don't appreciate here with this site is that they go in and talk about the past, right, and how other projects use certain technologies. And then right here at the bottom, in designing the Algorand, we didn't take for granted the Bezonite agreement for impossible to solve efficiently. We were not seduced by the status quo of weaker alternatives. Okay, get to the point. Rather, we deliver another technology breakthrough. Algorand blockchain processes new blocks in roughly 3 seconds, only one of which is devoted to reaching Bezonite agreement. Reaching such agreement on each block is why Algorand blockchain never forks, which means no asset can ever temporarily have different owners. Each block that appears on the Algorand chain enjoys instant finality. That is, it is immediately guaranteed never to disappear from the chain. To use instant finality is yet another form of efficiency. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so you can see that there's definitely benefits in their consensus. There's definite benefits in their features that they provided to the consensus. So I think this is their major value proposition from its core, technology here with Algorand. All right, let's move on. Let's see what else we got here. We got the team. Let's talk about, I want to talk about the team for a second, and then we'll get back. Maybe what we should do is put the team on hold. Let's put the team on hold. They're definitely awesome. Let me just quickly rearrange some of my tabs here so we can team is awesome, but we got to do things properly. Let's see. Okay, so we got here. Let's take a look at what Algo. Let's go back to this website a second. The Algo. Algo is a native token of the Algorand blockchain. It powers a diverse range of application across Algorand ecosystem. We're going to talk about the ecosystem soon, okay? Because that's one of the biggest layers of contention with Algorand. And I'm going to try to be very clear and very honest and open about what's going on with Algorand, and we'll navigate this together. So there's a bit of repetition here, okay? So I'm not going to get into it, but you can see that what I found most useful, obviously, why Algo, peer-to-peer transactions, okay, from different wallets, no intermediaries required. That's across the crypto space. That's the main value proposition. We know that. Available to anyone, anywhere, okay, and true ownership. Those are very typical. Now, when we get to they provide a little bit of tokenomics here. We can see that the total Algo minted capped supply is at 10 billion. Algo held by Algorand Foundation. Algo not yet in circulation. Okay, that's a little bit vague. I'll be honest, it's a little bit vague. So give me a number. What is not in circulation? Well, we can assume, based on the circulating supplies, whatever is not in circulation, whatever is left to be in circulation, we have right now 8.7 or so billion, right, at this current moment circulating supply. So we have a few billion or a couple billion that still need to be in circulation. Meaning, based on their definition here, again, now this is the only information I have, is that the foundation holds the rest, the difference between 10 billion and 8.7 billion. Now, is that valid? I don't know. They want to be transparent, see transparency reports. I did go through some of them, the reports. They don't offer much transparency as to exactly what the foundation holds and the wallet addresses associated to the individuals within the organization that hold those tokens. Right, that's what I want to see, especially when you claim, and some data aggregators like CoinGecko and many others say that they're fully diluted. And I'm going to show you some of them in a second, okay? If you're fully diluted, circulating supply has to be fully, like 10 billion. So that means it's not fully diluted. Somebody holds some tokens, whether it's soft lock or not, it doesn't matter. They are in circulation, but who's holding them? Well, where are they? Like, are they locked somewhere? Like, what happened? Are they burnt? I don't see any talk about burning. So this is where I'm like, kind of like, okay, transparency reports, they're not that transparent. And we'll talk about more of that in a second. Okay, so what is circulating supply Algo? As you can see, circulating supply of Algo gradually increases through time as remaining Algo held by the Algorand Foundation enter general circulation. So again, I'm building more based on the definitions provided, that the remaining tokens are held by the foundation. Not 100% clear, but seems like that's the case. Again, guys, what they provide to me and to us, the retail investor, if whatever clarity they provide is on them. They should be very clear about that. Does the Algorand Foundation own tokens? The Algorand Foundation holds Algo tokens as part of its treasury. So there is a treasury. Again, the remaining tokens should be in that treasury. For more information, see the foundation list wallet. I went to go look in the transparency reports for their wallets. I did find a set of wallets, but again, I'm going to show you what I mean. There is vagueness and ambiguity in those wallets, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Now, what I do understand is that a foundation is required, especially when there's a layer of governance. Now, if the foundation, and particularly these foundation tokens, are managed through governance, then you know what? It's not a bad thing. And even, to be honest, we have to understand, even as a software solution company, they need some tokens, they need some liquidity, they need some capital to run this operation. If you're a token holder and you really want to see Algorand do well, don't you think that you should want to see some capital go into investing into the business rather than nothing? Like, we've seen fair launch projects before, which they have no budget. They rely on, the community to raise capital, bake sales and, garage sales to raise capital. They can't get listed on exchanges. They can't do anything, no marketing, no nothing. And that is a big problem, because in that case, there's no grease to get the business moving. You need to have a little bit of grease. And of course, we struggle with this because it's like, okay, the foundations of projects, we need that grease. We established that it is necessary. Who calls the shots on where that capital gets deployed? Obviously, then we get into the term decentralization. Can we decentralize the authority over the organization? And that's usually when we introduce the DAO. Now, it's not necessarily a DAO that they got going on here, right? They have governance, which I guess they are the same to a degree, but it's less formal with governance. Okay, so let's just get going a little bit more. We'll get into the transparency reports. As you can see, there's a couple reports that get listed. You can see the last one that was actually listed here is in 2022. Guys, that's old. For tech and crypto, that's old. That's not enough. Even if nothing has changed, a statement here, a report, just briefly summarizing and updating the numbers and so on and so forth should be on the agenda. Now, wallet addresses, guys, I don't know what this means. Again, I couldn't figure it out because it is what it is, plain English, right? You have a wallet address and it says non-participating. I don't know what that means. That sounds funky. Okay, non-participating. All these wallets are non-participating. So what does that mean? Definition-wise, this is like not very defined and well developed. Some clarity needs to be provided. What I would say is if there are tokens that are held by a foundation, you should say foundation, token, a wallet address, and how many tokens are in the wallet. And that's totally fine. And in addition to that, a scanner that actually has the functionality to see all the wallet addresses and how many tokens are in that wallet. Guys, I've been through all the Algorand scanners that exist. Guys, I couldn't find, like, when you go to Etherscan and you can check all the wallets and see the distribution on wallets to see if they're even and fair and not concentrated. Well, I couldn't find that on the Algorand scanner. Again, guys, let me know in the comment section below if you were able to find any tool or scanner for Algorand where you can see the actual wallet addresses so we can tell like how much percentages of the tokens are being held in particular wallets. That for me lets me to see the centralization of the token distribution, right? So because that's one of the points of contention with Algorand is that it's early days of Algorand. A lot of the tokens were allocated to heavyweight investors, seed rounds, and VCs, and all of that. And we can talk all day long about whether that's good or bad. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Algorand has passed its level of infancy to the point that now we're around Algorand seeing in multi-cycle positions. And usually when that happens, we start to see those tokens distribute across many wallets healthily, of course, while still providing that liquidity necessary to get Algorand off the ground in its early stages. So, these are very important topics, no doubt. But I'm not going to get into the benefit or the drawbacks about, having early investors, heavyweight investors early on. I'm just saying at least be transparent about where the tokens are being allocated from the team and so on in the treasury right into here. And from the scanner perspective, I want to know if there's any whales out there holding X amount, like an extreme amount of tokens. So that's that, guys. Hopefully you appreciate what I'm trying to say here. And then again, I got into one of the reports. This was the earliest one, the latest one, sorry, June 30th, 2022. I don't see anything regarding, wallet addresses, updated addresses, metrics, tokenomics, anything other than, okay, where they're going with the tokens. And you can see Algo 1.5 billion up from 20, investment in venture funds and where they're putting the capital. Okay, there is some transparency, but the basic transparency, either I'm missing it completely after 48 hours of research. Maybe I don't know about if it's hidden somewhere, which again tells you something, right? It shouldn't be hidden. It should be clear. It should be very well defined and give people a sense of comfort when trying to get this information, not having to dig around. Okay, guys, let's move on from this because I don't we got a few other things that we got to talk about. This is one of the scanners, all of Algorand. This is allo.info. I believe this to be the main scanner. Again, I would it's on the top of the list on CoinGecko. I checked them all out. This is very basic. There's some good features here that that you can explore different things and so on, and different assets that they got, and you can see very small ecosystem, which we'll talk about in a second. But other than that, there's nothing else here really to talk about, right? You got a block time, transactions per second, circulating supply is still 8.7 billion, 87% is in circulation, max supply is 10. I'm gonna repeat this as we see this, because when you look at other aggregators, they say it's fully diluted and there's no more tokens to be issued. And then some aspects you see again that it has to be. So discover more insight about Algorand blockchain. I didn't think I ever clicked this. Let's double check. Let's see what's going on here. Did I find something that I didn't? Okay, a little bit more data. Okay, I didn't see that little button down there on the side. Okay, what else we got here? Circulating supply, okay. Daily active addresses are coming down, not a good one. Total accounts are going up, okay. That's not bad. The Algo, let's see if we get, what's this? Overview, ledger, Algo. Okay, accounts, account balances. Okay, this is what we're talking about. Got a little bit more data here. Range, treasury, here we go. Treasury, and then governance. Algorand Foundation. There we go, guys. So look, the transparency is here. On the scanner now, like I was able to find it right here live as I'm recording this video, which is kind of cool because it shows you the validity behind, digging around it just a little bit. Market cap, market operation, so you can see old accounts burnt. Oh, there has been some tokens burned. So there's information. There was some information that wasn't that readily available on their white paper and on their documentation on their website. This is the problem, guys. I had to get into this third-party application. I don't know if this was created by the foundation themselves or the team or whatever the case may be, but this is what I was looking for. So you can see there about 29 million were burned. That's nothing when you're talking about a project of $10 billion. Old accounts, nothing. Okay, fine. Market operations, 8 million. Algorand, XGov, 1.3 million. That's very little. And I'm talking about Algorands here. Okay, I'm not talking about what is the current price of an algo at the current moment. We got some little bit of volatility in the last little while. So let's see what CoinGecko is offering right now. It's only 23 cents. Definitely taking a hit here in the last little while. So we understand there are some million algos, 834 million algos. So there is some capital here for the treasury, for governance and so on, and XGov, which is part of the governance model that they have. Locked supply. So this is interesting because this is probably how we get to that portion of where we see some of the tokens missing from the 10 billion. Right? So going from 10 billion to 8 point something means that there is a bit of tokens either being burnt, which we can see that there was some burnt. And this right here, MBR, again, guys, I'm doing this live, so I'm not really familiar with what they're talking about here. Minimum balance required. Every account on Algorand needs to have a minimum balance of to be created on the ledger. That's include application accounts. Okay. So that means that minimum eventually, if you think about it, needs to be locked. It needs to be taken aside because it can't be sold, or else you lose your or you can't have a wallet that way, right? So that's the minimum balance. And then you go on forward and you say fees sync. What's this? Fees sync. Let's see. Fees. The fee sync is the account where all the transaction fees are sent. You can learn more about mainnet network parameters. Where all the transaction fees are set. So when you basically transact, these fees get sent here, and then I'm assuming these get brought to some sort of governance of some sort. That would be ideal, obviously. So to decentralize the authority over these fees that get sent to the sink. It would be nice to see a burning mechanism of sorts. I would like to see at least governance to allow the decision making, whether they get burnt or distributed for use case for ecosystem growth or whatever the case may be. But generally an interesting thing. We see a lot of tokens. We see range 0 to 1. A lot of accounts here. 100 million, 12 accounts, 2.5. Look, there's a good amount of transparency here. Now that I found this page, I would just say there's still a discrepancy between where some of the tokens, right? And I'm assuming that they're all held in treasury. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now, I wanted to show you what I was talking about before. Just want to quickly go back to CoinGecko. You can see their circulating supply is valid here, the way they suggested it to be, and matches their website. But then you go into other aggregators, other data providers, and you'll see that there's totally misunderstandings here. Like, technically, 10 billion circulation, everything's in circulate, everything's fully diluted. Now, is it a soft lock that we're talking about? Yes, technically it's a soft lock because all these tokens are minted unless they're burnt. Unless they're burnt because they were once minted and then burnt, that's a totally different story. But if they're held as a minimum, still, what about if somebody decides to close their account out and take out the minimum? They're not necessarily burnt. They're still in circulation, can be traded in the future. And the governance, the tokens that are held within governance or the treasury eventually are going to get issued at their discretion or at the governance discretion. So technically, those are in circulation as well. There's just a little bit of ambiguity in terminology. I feel that that needs to have a little bit of clarity there. Okay, so let's move on. At least I found that other website there, or that other page on the scanner to give us a bit more data. Now you can see that their white paper. I'm just going to quickly touch upon this because there is a formal white paper that was issued in 2017. Maybe it's due for an update, maybe not, because this white paper is not a typical crypto white paper. It is a tech white paper in the sense that it talks about the technology significantly, gets down to the level of physics, guys. So I'm not going to get through all of this because this is a very academia or academically written paper, which is exactly where I want to get to next when we start talking about the team and so on. Guys, this is next level, okay? This is not for the average degen here in the crypto space. This is somebody that wants to really know about how things work under the hood. And again, I'm not going to get into that here on this video because it's far and beyond the scope. But nonetheless, guys, the information is here if you want it. Go check it out. Fully transparent there. Now, this is one of their governance platforms. This is the forum for Algorand. As you can see, you can sign up. The XGov beta is on mainnet, so they got some, they got a platform, to get the community involved and with the governance. I sent my governance algo to Coinbase. I don't know if that worked out, but you can see you can get involved here and do your thing. That's great to see because it's a great way to not only give people that sense of ownership and belonging and attachment to the project, and it also brings obviously that decentralization aspect to the organization itself. So good stuff there. Just to give you a quick sweep of what they got here: Algorand Technical Council. They got different things. This website's pretty good because you got a different various topics that you can go through: wallets, run a node, staking and rewards, ecosystem, and the tech, and so on. You can see a lot of the getting started with the Algo kit. They provide a kit for developers and a portal and developer bootcamp to help all developers. Obviously, in the incentive here is that they invest in ecosystem growth, right? More ecosystem, more utility for the token, more reason to be a holder and obviously buy the token. So we see that chain of events or that chain effect, right? So I'm glad to see that they're definitely keeping that in mind. The community, lots of different socials and forums and so on, which we'll talk about in a second as well. I'm just trying to get through all of these little. It's like we're going through two websites at once, by the way, guys. Just to remind you, there's so much here, and I just wish there was, the information was a little bit more concentrated, and at the same time, streamlined for the crypto enthusiast. Partnership and industry alliance. So these are some partners. I think I also have an ecosystem one, ecosystem tab. You know what? Let's just do this one. Entrepreneurs. I think it's here. Let's talk about the ecosystem a little bit here. Where is the getting started? Let's see what else they got here. Ecosystem. Boom. Right into here. Let's open this up. Can we open this up right here? What happened? Ecosystem. I want to learn about the ecosystem. Oh, here we go. Whoa. Ecosystem overview. Let's do that. So one of the biggest contentions here with Algorand is their slow moving ecosystem growth. Okay. And you can tell by the lack of buzz behind Algorand. Now, I did mention earlier on about that point. The point being that Algorand, okay, primarily is focusing on other parts of the world other than North America, particularly focusing on Europe and Latin America in general. So, which gives us, a little bit of a disconnect from North America and not really appreciating perhaps what they have going on. That could be the case. That's just a thesis of mine, and ultimately, really, it's no excuse, but it is a point of friction of allowing the North American market to have that mind share. Okay, it is that friction. So there's wallets. You got Para and DeFi. Okay, that's pretty cool. Tokenization platform. So if you want to, you have climate trades softly. We talked about already, and so on. And you got some other small DeFi protocols. Folks Finance was one of them. As you can see, NFT and games, very small, just a few. And again, nothing mainstream. Data traceability, I would expect this to be a little bit more stronger. And we got a few here going on, and Complete Pay and so on, USDCA. So we got a couple small, Allo ecosystem tools, Allo accessible Algorand block explorer. As I was digging around with you guys, you noticed that I was able to find a lot of the information, which meant that, Allo, typically design wise, I shouldn't have had that experience, but all good. It was there, and we were able to find some good information there. I would highly recommend that you dig deeper into all of it. And as you can see, that's their ecosystem. It's a very, very no it's an ecosystem that doesn't have much buzz. I'm going to say it again. Let's keep it like that. It doesn't have much buzz. It's not like there's a lot happening there. And a lot of people are losing their patience with that fact. The thing is that you have to understand Algorand's approach. Algorand's approach is to make a very, very solid institutional grade product and service here. Or better yet, let's remove those words, solution, software solution. And for that to happen, for an institution to trust, especially we're talking about institutional grade. Institutional money is not retail money. Okay, it's a totally different category and level. Okay, if we want those institutions to feel confident, we got to make sure, or Algorand has to make sure that their foundation is rock solid. No level of ambiguity and no issues. And that's why they're taking their time. And as we keep on going, we're almost there. We're going to start getting into the team and so on, and their professionalism, and probably connecting why they're taking this approach. But it makes total sense, right? So the ecosystem is slow moving, and that's something that we got to understand. Now, if we went back to this page, right, and you quickly start looking at, that was the tokenomics, and we start looking, I know there's other things here, emissions, token unlocks, on-chain claim. No, let's continue on. I'm going to get into another website that I want to show you in a second that might give us more information. Partnerships, okay, different partnerships. So I feel like these are valid, 100%. These are valid, great partnerships, no doubt, but I don't know if they're the latest and the greatest, because sometimes websites are the last ones to get updated, to be honest. And this thing was updated in 2025, so maybe it still could be fresh, but I'm anticipating that there's some new relevant partnerships that happened in the more recent days. So we got to really look into that. But nonetheless, guys, very institutional, right? Identity Foundation, a blockchain association, non-for-profit, ready non-profit organizations dedicated to promoting pro-innovation. Like this is very institutional. DREC Alliance, a founding member of DREC Alliance, a group of forward-thinking companies from across Web2 and Web3 ecosystem that are committed to making process of securing and recovering digital assets. Very interesting. And as you keep on going down, you'll see a lot. Even this state of Nigeria, Algorand Foundation partnered with the governor of Plateau State in Nigeria to explore pilot blockchain applications across governance, healthcare, and more. So we're seeing this institutional grade type of software solution, being implemented and used as proof of concept here in smaller governments that can possibly handle such, implementations as early adopters. Okay, so keep it in mind. Now, if we go on the roadmap, Again, I had to go here into their blog posts from 2025 here to see their roadmap, which is pretty good. I would say one of the better roadmaps that I've seen in a governance with a project that has governance. Usually, when there's governance or DAO, you don't get a good roadmap. But I would say this is their guidelines, this is their ideas, this is what they want to do. Web3 core value, the fundamentals. So I see a lot of things pertaining to the Algo kit. They come out the Algo, 4.0 coming around the corner. They obviously the on-chain governance and stuff like that. They want to get that going a little, take it to the next level. Economic sustainability and so on. And then we go to, can a blockchain do this? Yes, tokenized financial products. So we're getting into the DeFi and real-world asset type of thing. Because when you tokenize financial products, you're also talking about real world assets, because the reality is a financial product is a real world asset as well, right? There's projects that come to my mind at this current moment that are doing this and that fit the narrative of real world assets. The thing is that a lot of us, when we see financial implementations, we start think DeFi, which is obviously totally acceptable. But there's this cross between bringing financial instruments to the crypto space that technically, if you think about them, because they belong in the real world, they're also belong in the real world asset narrative. Agentic commerce of speed of light, billions of AI agents will soon transact autonomously. So this is another narrative that has been, talked about significantly this cycle, one of the hotter narratives. We just have to understand that we've yet to see a project to actually implement the AI agent frameworks properly. This is from a couple of years of research and me being in this space for many years, seeing AI agent narrative come out of nowhere and really flop on its implementation. In my opinion, again, just my opinion. I think that there's a lot of room for a first mover advantage that's going to implement AI agents in an appropriate way, okay, in an effective way. Let's put it that way, and maybe and be more clear, in a decentralized way. Okay, let's see what happens. Self-governed identity. This is another topic that's pretty interesting. Stay ahead, privacy, post-quantum. We talked about that, and scalability. Algorand already handles 10,000 TPS with minimal hardware. They want to improve that. Okay, let's see what happens. All right, guys. So pretty good with dates. They got time frames. They got ideas. They got very clear and acceptable pathways, within their realm, within the realm of acceptability that they could achieve, and so on and so forth. So I appreciate all of that. Let's continue going on. So we have their blog, their publications. Good stuff. We're slowly getting into this individual here. Slowly. Silvio is the man of the match here, in my opinion. Obviously, the team is large, the team is talented, and there's a lot of individuals, but we have to understand from a founder perspective and a leadership perspective, he does deserve a bit of attention here and focus. But nonetheless, from a social perspective, you see they have publications, peer-reviewed papers, and standard proposals. Why I want to talk about this particularly is because the realm of academia is definitely intertwined within the Algorand technologies. What I mean by that is that even the founder himself is highly involved in the academia space, being a professor himself and being integrated into many institutions, mainstream institutions within the realm of tech, and a lot of good things here. So I do see that they are very comfortable within this peer-reviewed paper type of place, which is the realm of academia. Okay, so interesting, and they're not the only project out there. I'm sure you can name a few that are very comfortable within that space. And that space, generally speaking, from a marketing perspective, when you're talking about academia, you're talking about very traditional mindsets, which means that from a traditional conservative mindset, you're not worried about buzz. You're worried about foundation. You're worried about changing the game from the core and creating innovations that change the way we do things in a big way, and ultimately creating solutions that can be relied upon for centuries to come with sustainabilities. right? This is what the realm of academia brings. It's not fast moving. Don't expect that. Don't expect it to catch all the buzzwords. Don't expect that. Don't expect it for pumps and dumps and all these kind of buzzing and all of this kind of stuff with marketing and flashy lights. That's not going to happen. But what will happen is the foundation will be built. It will fly under the radar until institutions pick up on it. Institutions pick up on it, and all of a sudden the retail is the last ones to notice. That's usually what happens with a pull strategy in tech, right? Well, guess what? We need to stay one step ahead here. We're definitely going to focus on what they've been looking at, what Silvio's bringing to the table from an institutional perspective, academia perspective, and so on. So right here, even their marketing, their whole strategy, you can tell it's very institutional-like. Okay, so the Medium post, honestly, it seems abandoned. Unfortunate, very, very Medium. Ultimately, I've seen lots of different projects have these, and you can see the last one was from 2022. Not acceptable. Remove it. If you can't commit to it, don't even have it. From a marketing perspective, that's not a good look. If you go on their X, Algorand Technologies, this is where I got their other website right here. The other one I think I got on CoinGecko and so on. So there's different links everywhere for the two. But you can see, Algorand's a dude that's, Silvio's a dude that's everywhere. And that's very well respected. We'll talk about more. But blockchain is an amazing technology and is enjoying adoption from early adopters to big finance. But perhaps it's fair to say that governments are not quite there yet. Why? So he's a full keynote speaker here on government, and you can see based on his topic of conversation, it's pure institutional. What they're focusing on is institutional grade software solution, and for me that's bonus. That's very interesting. Okay, so Paris Blockchain Week, go check that out. Congratulations, Algorand, head of cryptography, for his well-deserved award. So award, you can see Test of Time award, and Eurocrypt goes to an ideal. Learning for errors and ring. Okay, you can see there's a lot of good stuff here. Algorand head, and you got using the power of Algorand blockchain. Lots of good stuff when dealing with regulated financial institutions. You guys can read this. This is the founder, CEO and founder, and so on, talking about there. And Travelex completed 112.5 million transactions on Algorand. This is what I mean, like with on-chain NFT tickets, enabling customers to transfer and resell tickets effortlessly. So this is what I mean, guys. There's things that are happening where Algorand is being integrated, but at the same time, it's not very, very in our face here in North America. For example, Italian energy giant Enel Group, Europe's largest electricity producer and second largest in the world. No one knew of this. I didn't know of it. Let's put it that way. I'll plead ignorance here. I didn't know that was the case. Has partnered with Conio to launch a solar panel tokenized product on Algorand. Okay, so Italian residents can now purchase solar panels and have Enel manage and apply the energy products directly to their bills. No rooftop required. Real-world assets on Algorand. Okay, guys, so this is what I mean. Like, would you ever know that? Maybe, maybe not, right? Unless you have that up in your face and you're following Algorand day to day. There's a lot of other good things here that they have posted. There was a couple others, and so on. You guys can go through all these relationships. You can see there's this one. Obviously, it's in Spanish here, but with a bank, Coin Banks and Algorand. It's a success story here. Feel free to go through that. I did pin some of these. I did repost a couple of these that I found interesting in the last little while as I was doing research. There's a lot here. You can see Latin America is everywhere, and a lot of them are in Spanish. A lot of them are focusing on that type of that integration in that part of the world. So we should see some adoption stemming from there, and their markets are a bit smaller, meaning that it's going to be a lot easier. As you can see, hackathons, that's a big part in Vietnam. It's a global identity that they're trying to pick up on here. So Algorand's doing a good job from that perspective, no doubt. Okay, so let's move on. We're taking a look at that. This is Crypto Rank. This was the team. I just want to quickly show you some of the faces faces to the names here. We got Silvio Micali, I think that's how you would say it, right? Micali, Gary Maloff, Gary, and we got Michelle. We got a couple others. Great talent, COO Jacopo, and of course Italian. Silvio's Italian. There's going to be a lot of Italian influence here, Italian team members, I'm assuming here, but that's the case. And you can see that again, the fundraising earlier on. I'm just going to quickly touch upon this. They were able to get a decent amount of funds raised, and I really do feel like it's because of their ability to connect with, again, institutions and academia. Okay, so that you're going to see is going to be very important as we keep on going next. Now, if you look at some of them, they're fully doxed. Bonus, beautiful to see a team confident enough to put their names forward. If you click this little plus, you can read into them. Again, lots of good stuff. IBM and this and that. I don't know. Like, you can see that they work for VP of Marketing in Lenovo. Lots of good stuff, guys. No doubt. You can see prior to his appointment as COO, Jacob serves as Chief of Staff to Algorand's founder, Silvio Micali. So he's a long time, let's say, member of the Algorand team. He has a great experience and background, bachelor's degree in economics and social science from Bocconi, I don't know how do you pronounce that, but university. He also holds master's degree in business administration and so on. So we do have some talent here. Now, if you go scroll through, you can do your research. You got some advisors here, definitely, which is good. Now, what I usually do is I dig a little deeper. But before we do that, I want to just put a spotlight here on Silvio, because he's one of the most right now foremost authorities in mathematics, computer science, and cryptography. Again, if you're not part of this industry, particularly computer science and engineering, you wouldn't really know this, and you fly under the radar. Even so, that he's an Italian native, but he's very intertwined within North America as well. We'll get there. The builder of the Algorand blockchain, which today is widely acknowledged to be one of the best performing layer 1 blockchains created ever created. We got to make sure we put that word in there. So I'm assuming he wrote this. Who knows who wrote this? Publicist, who knows? Silvio has helped pioneer many of the breakthrough technologies, this is key, guys, because we've seen these technologies intertwined with many other blockchain. He is the co-inventor of the probabilistic encryption zero knowledge proofs. Okay, verifiable random functions, and many other innovations that are foundations of modern cryptography. He holds a total of 47 patents in the field of random number generation. Guys, if you even know anything about random number generation, it's a whole other level of computer science that has been in the works of understanding the science behind generating a random number, guys. Of course, everything up until I think today, because recently I think we've had some major breakthroughs in generating random. They're always just pseudo-random. And when you're talking about pseudo-random, you're talking about vulnerabilities, because there's always going to be a seed, right, in that random. So what we're really hoping on is that the brilliant minds of today can come up with software solutions that integrate these little nuances that differentiate from the past. So these cryptography using random numbers, and as we mentioned with the consensus, picking a random validator from a pool of validators, and in such a way keeping it random so it's safe and secure, unpredictable, requires a level of understanding of generating true random numbers, right? That's where 47 patents, guys. That's all we can say, right? Digital certificates and electronic transactions. So he's got it there. Now, awards and being one of the most prestigious awards you can get in the software space is the Turing Award. Turing Award, one of the oldest languages out there, and obviously Turing Award for computer science, the Global Prize of Theoretical Computer Science, the RSA Prize for Cryptography, guys. The list goes on. The guy is definitely, qualified to bring not only the talent himself, but to identify team members that also can keep up with the talent required to make Algorand successful. He is a member of the National Academy of Science, the National Academy of Engineering, the American Academy of Arts and Science, and Academia de Linci, MIT professor. Guys, he's at MIT. He has been a faculty member of MIT's electrical engineering and computer science department since 1983. Guys, that's over 40 years. So that's the level, right? So what I'm saying here is that, okay, we can be bullish on tokenomics, we can be bullish on the social media and the buzz and the this and the that. When you're at this level, it doesn't matter really. What you're building upon is this. You're building upon the experience, the validity of the understanding and knowledge and capabilities to bring new innovations, 47 new patented innovations to this field, right? That's what you're really hoping on. And that's why I think the team, if I could rank it, is beyond 10 out of 10. Right, because this is what we kind of need here. So Silvio received a mathematics award from mathematics from University of Rome, and his PhD in computer science from the University of California at Berkeley. In 2023, he was awarded the honorary degree of cybersecurity from another Roman, the University of Rome, in recognition of his many contributions to the field in cybersecurity. So the guy is world renowned. He's definitely again, guys, there's no more. As you can see, an honorary award here for all he has contributed to this space in general. Now, before this, have you heard his name? If it wasn't for Algorand, would you know of him? Well, this is the thing. It could be the fact is that because of this, it's undervalued, right? So let's move on. The team is 96 members strong, which is a pretty big team in my opinion. But again, the ambitions of this project is quite large. We got 32 from the United States, a few from India, Nigeria, and so on. And I did scroll through a lot of these. I'm not going to go through 96 of them or whatever, but there are a lot of there's tons of talent, business, engineering, software, economics, you name it, marketing, this and that. So I kind of went through a little bit. This dude doesn't have a complete profile, unfortunately, but Brown University assistant professor, again, academia, co-founder of Foodler, co-founder Foodler Food Sales, Cisco Systems, software engineer, MIT. Guys, this is where I'm going. This is where we're at. Okay, this is where we're at with some of these. Okay, another one, Algorand Technologies. As we go down, you can see a board member, Montes Group, this and that, and economics and social science. We talked about this business. This is it. This is where we're at. Business, and then of course himself. You can get into a lot more detail about Silvio with some of the things that he have. University of Toronto, University of California, Turing Award for engineering, and Algorand, and there's more, guys. It's just not included. And then Gary, a blockchain advisor, angel investor. Not much happening here, but he's definitely involved. So good stuff here, no doubt. I can see Boston, Massachusetts. So basically MIT involvement somewhere there. So the team is powerful. Definitely the team is powerful. Because of this power, because of, I would say the founder primarily, because of course there's other talent. I'm not trying to, ignore that. But because of this, and his credits, essentially, he's able to, in my opinion, would be able to attract a lot of capital. Okay. And you got to admit that because of that, people are willing to invest in his innovations. So as a leader, he's got the full package. So this is where things get really bullish. All right, guys. So that's that. As usual, I do give you guys an infographic where I summarize a lot of what we talked about. I'm going to make this available all on the socials. So let me just make this a little bit bigger for you guys so we can kind of see this quickly as a summary. And I'll put it in the timestamp so that you guys can get straight to this if you ever want to quickly get a summary. And I'll put these all on the Discord so that we can use these as little cheat sheets for future. Because obviously, there's a lot of projects out there, guys. And having these little tools to kind of navigate, the details of all these projects is very, very useful. Okay, so Algorand at the end of the day is an L1. As you know, it focuses on smart contract platforms. It is dabbling into different narratives and trying to provide a home for a lot of dApps and applications to be built on this L1, and it offers a lot of good features. Now let's talk about its ecosystem. Like, we got to be really clear about ecosystem. It's very small.
Okay, and it's one of the biggest criticisms of Algorand is that it's not really creating anything and giving anything to the network yet. Like major, only small projects are there right now. Nothing is really being built in a big way. However, I just want to make it very clear. A lot of what we see happening is foundational. It's not really up in our face from an ecosystem point of view, and it is international. It is not completely evident in North America, which means that maybe we are looking in the wrong place. Utility is probably where we should be looking. Transaction fees, staking, payments, asset creation, governance. They got everything from an L1 perspective down pat. And from its consensus mechanism all the way up to its way people can earn passive income, it is definitely there and established in a very strong way. Now, if we go down to the roadmap, we got some more good alpha here because we are able to clearly understand where they were going with things. The 2025 roadmap is well defined. 2026 is around the corner. I expect them to have proper communications. I'm prepared for that. Dates and timelines are included, which is perfect. And it seems like the real world asset integrations are the main focus. Regardless, 10 out of 10 because of the transparency and great communication there. The team, another 10 out of 10, strong team and leadership. Of course, I hate to kind of just focus on Silvio as the MVP, the man of the match. I would hate to do that, but because there's lots of talent, lots, okay? I'm just saying, though, he, as a recognized individual, world-renowned, award-winning computer science and engineer, mathematician, and all of this, MIT, California, Berkeley, all these kind of things everywhere, Europe, Rome, this and that, Latin America. The thing is that as a leader, I think he can bring a lot to the table from different avenues, not just from his education and experience and technical know-how, but his ability to raise capital and open doors. And that is what you need from a leader. So I think that's super bullish. I would give it an 11 out of 10 from that perspective. And if we go down to the socials, there's some room to benefit there. So X followers, 360K with a moderate engagement. So there's some engagement there, just, nothing crazy. And again, if you think about their pull strategy in their marketing, I can tell that they're using a pull strategy. They're not really pushing, meme coins on you here. That's not what you're going to get out of Algorand right now. You never know, because as a public blockchain, you could have somebody deploy a meme coin. They can't. Algorand can't stop somebody deploying a meme coin. But you can see that meme coins are not attractive in that on Algorand. They're in that space, and I'm not sure if Algorand would want if they had the choice to have that type of persona. So I don't know. Very institutional grade, and they're focusing on a pull strategy. I understand, but modern engagement is not good. Their blogs on Medium seems abandoned, which is not a good look. I've seen this so much, and I'm going to keep on calling it out, because it's like, if you're going to commit to it, you might as well follow through, right? Especially if you're expecting to educate and bring information. Medium is a great place to do that. And if you have your own blog, there's a way to cross post and use Medium as a way of increasing your SEO and all that kind of stuff for Google, and communications and marketing management team should know all of this already. Telegram and Discord are active but need more engagement. I've been hanging around their Discord, their Telegram. There's a little bit of action, a little bit more than maybe I thought at one point. It goes up and down type of thing, but still, like, you need a little bit more community. And what brings community, what brings interest, is ecosystem, right? The more the ecosystem is evident and there's things to do there, like a game or even a meme coin, you gotta admit, memes bring community because there's nothing else, right? So I'm not saying a meme is a solution to their marketing and socials, but what I am saying is that there has to be something to talk about, right? And usually from an L1 perspective, other than an upgrade or something like that, which is obviously great and something to talk about it, but it's short-lived. But when you have an ecosystem that is growing and there's projects being deployed constantly, or there's a project that is more engaging because of its narrative, again, gaming or memes, and just to use them as examples, they are great ways to keep the community engaged and active, right, from a social perspective. So what we're lacking here is
an ecosystem that has that buzz. Now, again, it's going to be difficult because it's like an institutional grade software solution. How do you generate the buzz, guys? It's very difficult, but it needs to be done in order to see this thing, generate some mind share in the space. Tokenomics, guys, I wanted to give the tokenomics a great score. I really, really did. But because of the ambiguity and the lack of clarity, I felt like it's difficult, and we have to take what I saw as face value. Remaining tokens, which is approximately 12.7%, is held by the foundation. And I just found, as we were recording this live, I found that small little link button on the scanner finally that showed us that there is a small portion being burned or has been burned and so on. But based on their language, it seems like the remaining tokens that can be issued are held by the foundation. 5% annual inflation, and this is something that was found on the original documentation, that they plan to be completely, the inflation to be done, or planned emissions to be planned to be completed by 2023, which, okay, it's around the corner, got a few years, next cycle, who knows. But again, if you want to tighten up the tokenomics, number one, 12.7% from the foundation is quite a bit. Is it held within governance completely? All of it? How much of it? Do token holders get to vote on how that capital gets deployed? That is important. The fees, the transaction fees, do they get put into the into the treasury here? And again, do they get allocated to this treasury or into the foundation? I want more detail. And it could be there somewhere around amongst all these websites and white papers and scattered across the internet somewhere. But that's not the job of that's the job of a communications officer, somebody that's handling communications and marketing of the Algorand team, to package Algorand and prepare it for product market fit. What I mean by that is, if you want mass adoption, you got to think about the masses. And the masses in this space, unfortunately, people like you and I, we're not institutions. So if you're marketing to institutions, I understand if you're going to have an institutional packaging, which even still, which institutional packaging would appreciate scattered data all over the place, including, tokenomics? That's a bit of a problem. I think they need to have a Git book, a proper Git book that's going to put all that information. Guys, remind you, I have done over 110 deep dives in the last 2 years. Okay, I released one every single week. So I've seen deep dives, I've seen white papers, I've seen documentation, I've been through my websites, and I know what looks good from a communications perspective. You need to have tight packaging, and you need to be able to explain your project in a very succinct, tight, and efficient way. You're not going to expect a researcher or somebody that wants to invest in your asset, in your ecosystem, and expect them to scatter throughout the internet, spending 48 hours trying to find links. That's not how it works. That's friction, guys. That's friction. So again, from that perspective, I have no choice but to really come down hard on the tokenomics because of that. Like, there's nothing really telling me that I should be confident with what's really happening with the remaining tokens, right? So that's that. Sorry, guys. Let me just get back there for a second. What else we got here? We got relationships, some decent relationships, guys. We talked about a few. I only put a few here, guys. There's so many. I got some more in the summary in a second. Paycode, we got XBTO, we got Blockchain Association. I give it 9 out of 10 because, again, it would be nice to have a little bit of a relationship with a buzz project or a buzz brand that can bring Algorand, to the forefront of our mind share, particularly the younger generation, the average token holder, the average degen in this space wants to see something that's a little bit more relevant to their life. Right, not only institutional grade relationships, right? So it helps from a marketing perspective to have those types of relationships, regardless. So we got to help Algorand think about attracting more of that attention. I'm not saying 100%, but just a little bit more. Exchanges, guys, it's listed everywhere. Let's put it that way. There's no more places to be listed. It's listed on Mexi, Gate, Binance, and Coinbase, so that's already cooked. And then Bybit is a big one, of course, and KuCoin and a few others. And BitNex, of course, I got links in the description, guys, if you want to know more about BitNex. Great exchange.
but 10 out of 10 there. Lots of liquidity out there. You can exchange, you can trade it anywhere and so on. And that doesn't tie into the institutional grade that Algorand is. Okay, we've seen this. We've seen this many times where an institutional style project is listed everywhere, guys. There's no, it's agnostic. It doesn't matter which exchange it's listed. The exchanges want to list them, okay, because of their institutionalism and what it represents. So interesting. Let's go into some of the info. Like I said, they got the total billion total max supply, and then the total supply is 8.7 billion. So there's that differentiation of, you know, that difference. Where are those tokens? And I did my best, and we found that link live to, you know, figure out where that went to a degree. And again, more clarity would be great. And the volume is almost 6% of the market cap, which is good, which is not bad. Current market cap is $2 billion, which classifies it as a larger cap, which means that it should be catching some bids soon as we see the rotation happen into this space from Bitcoin, Ethereum down to the larger caps. Okay, so will Algorand attract some capital? I think it might attract some institutional grade capital, in my opinion. Okay, guys, obviously not financial advice. Do your own research, do your own thing. Use this deep dive as the beginning of your journey. That's how I think about it. Let's take a look at the verdict here for a second. So it is an L1 smart contract platform. The foundations are within governance, you know, but how many, and so on. Tokenomics needs more clarity. Slow growing ecosystem, one of the biggest things that people talk about with regarding to Algorand, and obviously tokenomics and the imbalance from all those early seed and investors, something to, and again, that's why I like tokenomics and wallet addresses that provide that transparency. However, much of the growth is in the institutional sector. This is something that we have to understand. Businesses and governments, it's not a very shiny place and buzzing place when you're talking about being business to business and government, right? It's boring. We've seen those before, those institutional style products. They don't catch bids until later on, and they're massive, right? The ETF quality type of projects, no doubt. Market penetration is concentrated to Europe and Latin America. So there's some good relationships there, like Xfinity, digital media and mass adoption. We have Coinbank's financial infrastructure in Latin America, and Group, Europe's largest electrical producer. We talked about that one, guys, and the second largest in the world, guys. This is big. Most of us don't even know this, right? Because we're not generally part of that part of the world. If you're in North America, you're blinded by this, and that's an unfortunate thing because it makes it undervalued in that case, right? The current price. Ecosystem growth would help community engagement across socials. We talked about that. Strong presence in academia. Again, very, very strong presence. Founder, CEO is definitely all over it, so that's good and highly qualified to be that face within the academia field, institutional field, and within the cryptography field as well. Pure proof of stake. Random selects validators from all holders proportionately. Very important to understand this differentiation from its consensus mechanism, because there's lots of proof of stakes, right? Lots of them. But some of them, they're a little bit different, right? They have their vulnerabilities and they need a little bit of tweaking in order to make them better. And again, according to Algorand, they found a good sweet spot. So instead of just completely relying on a validator's, the amount of staked liquidity or capital or Algorand staked to make the choice of if that node is going to be a validator or not, it does randomness. It is randomly selects the validator, and which gives that sense of democracy in the sense that or diplomacy across all the actors, because it's fair for everybody. It's a very diplomatic way to handle the consensus, but at the same time, leveraging their holdings to give them a little bit of an edge, a small edge, right? So leveling the playing field just a little bit. And then you have the Bezonite consensus. Even if some participants act maliciously or fail up to, let's say, 30%, the chain will still act as normal. And it gives a sense of security for the chain and its validity to maintain stability. Okay, so interesting there. I'll go with the market cap of Cardano. I thought Cardano ADA was one of the better
let's say, comparisons. Because they're very similar in their marketing, they're very similar in their style and their institutional type of grade software solution, their lack of ecosystem growth with the speed that we expect, and even with its leadership, they're very similar. Okay, so academia like very similar. So I figure, like, let's say Algorand can catch up. Obviously, Cardano is going to do its own thing. Also, it's going to start running. It's going to attract capital. It's going to move up. But let's say if Algorand, I'm not saying Algorand is going to flip Cardano. I'm not saying that the Cardano has its own value propositions, it has its own things. But let's say that it catches up to its current price without Cardano expanding and exploding. Guys, just from that perspective, we're talking about a 14, 15x Algorand hitting about $3, modestly speaking, right? It is, that would be crazy good, right? So you can see that, like, if you're going to compare one project with the next that has a very similar value proposition, Algorand is still young, still has a lot of opportunity for growth. So when you start looking at that capability or that opportunity, diversification is key here, because if Algorand can do this and, modestly speaking, just catch up to the current value of Cardano, there's a lot of X potential there for Algorand. Again, not financial advice, guys, but as you can see, Algorand has some things going for it. So I give it an 8 out of 10 because there are some things that need to be improved, especially with regards to the socials, ecosystem growth, and more importantly for me, for that transparency with regards to tokenomics. What does it take to have a big Git book page, right, with a tab that talks about all the clarity regarding its tokenomics, instead of having to jump from website to website and page to page and blog post to blog post? It's easier packaging, better communications. All right, guys, so that's that. We did pretty good here with Algorand. I know you're here to talk about price action, so let's begin. Let's see what's going on with the price of Algorand. Algorand, at the end of the day, it's been hovering around these levels for a good while. We've seen a little bit of growth within the space, a little bit of green, a little bit of a dip, and we're on a downtrend right now on the shorter term. But lately, guys, we've been seeing the altcoins, particularly Ethereum, lead the way for some of these larger caps, and it's very likely that Algorand, currently being in a retracement, is an opportunity to be buying the dip. Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. So at the end of the day, like, we got to understand that the market does work in peaks and valleys. It's not always up only. Algorand being in a retracement at the current moment means that, it could be a buy the dip opportunity where we start coming down, back testing breakout zones and so on, which you can see is probably, it is what it is at the current moment. We're currently, we broke above the 200 daily, we bounced off the 200 daily, now we're back to the 200 daily, and we're kind of doing some consolidation right into here, respecting the 200 daily. Do we continue respecting the 200 daily? That's the biggest concern here as we form this triangular formation. If we break below this bottom, guys, we're going to be hunting liquidity, and the question is where. You can see that there's lots of liquidity or lots of volume. Let's get rid of some of this looking left, and we can focus on the next order block, the next level where there's a lot of volume, is this point of control here right around 19 cents. Could we get there for a quick sweep? Sure. Could we hunt the liquidity below these bottoms right here that people put stop losses? 100%. Is there an imbalance with emotions right into this level? For certain. So what I would say is this: Algorand is not at the top. Okay, and it's not at the bottom either. We got to understand, because the bottom is here, the bottom is here. So we're not at bottom, but we did not expand into anything major. Guys, I just want to put in perspective here. I feel like I need to get onto the 4-day or maybe the weekly. Look where Algorand is, big picture. Okay, Algorand is at the bottom of this of the entire range high from the previous highs to all the way to the bottom. You can see we're much closer to the bottom. And if you look at this even closer and you start realizing what's really happening, the majority of the volume and market participation is all within the range between 40 cents more or less down to about 10 cents, 11 cents, which means that this is the range that we usually get into a floor price and an accumulation range before we try and attempt to expand through it. What we did, we failed. It was a swing failure right here. We broke above, we couldn't sustain, we didn't maintain structure to the upside, and we retraced. The good news is we currently have produced a higher low with this double bottom, and now we came for an attempt of a breakout of the previous high. We couldn't make it happen, and we're currently trying to build some bullish bids, pick up some bullish bids here, so eventually we can actually break out with some strength, with some good volume, and so on and so forth. So at the current moment, I'm telling you this: is that Algorand is at the bottom. And I'm sticking with the 4 day because the 4 day is giving you great perspective, you know. If we can come down to these levels, let me just put a green arrow in here. If we can come down, again, this is the 4 day. I can't believe I'm looking at the 4 day, but if we can get down to these levels here, perfection, right? That's where you want a DCA. Actually, we got another level where you might want to deploy a little bit more capital down here as through the imbalance. Come down here and pick up some more. As we get closer to the invalidation of these bottoms, that is where, you know, we look for support. Again, these are only points of interest for me. Once we get there, I want to see market structure. I want to see how we react. I want to see an inverse head and shoulder, cup and handle. I want to see some class A bullish divergence. I want to see some indication that the bulls are here now back and they're responding. However, we're talking about the 4 day, guys. What happened to this impulse? If we break below here, we confirm the lower low. What happened to this impulse? Is this bottom going to be hunted? Maybe. But what happened to this impulse? Well, we saw a massive impulse here with good volume. We retraced. We got another little impulse that didn't do anything. But do we go for another one after this retracement? Let's go on to the 6 hour. Okay, back to this, you know, formation, triangular formation. As we get close to the apex of this formation, we are due for a breakout. Doesn't have to happen, but statistically speaking, once we get close to the 70% towards the apex, that's where we have to make some critical decisions as to which direction we're going. Do we come down or do we go up? I'll tell you this, a sweep of the lows is possible. We have the imbalance to offer that opportunity. And if it happens, we couldn't be looking for a swing failure. It comes down, not sustainable, meaning no flag, no continuation. All we do is come down here, get tagged in, sweep the liquidity at the bottoms as people are getting into fresh longs with stop losses. They get hunted, and then we come back up, back test in spring, and then done, and it's over. And we start moving to the upside, right? These shakeouts, these sweeps happen all the time before the magic really happens. Does this have to happen? No, it doesn't have to happen, but we should prepare for it. Mentally, psychologically, economically, we should be prepared for that type of scenario for it to happen. However, we need to be clear about this. The bias of this type of formation is to the upside. Okay, because it is a triangular formation. It does look somewhat symmetrical at the current moment, but the most important thing is we're coming in from an impulse, consolidating, getting into an exchange of hands here. And as we boil up, we're going to look for an expansion and continuation. Has a good chance of that happening for many reasons. Number one, Ethereum. Number two, Bitcoin. Why I put Ethereum number one is because Ethereum gave us the signal that alts are now active. Bitcoin dominance is being brought down by Ethereum, BNB, and Solana, and a few others, right? But mostly Ethereum. Ethereum gave us that signal that it's time to focus on risk on assets. So with that being said, Algorand being the larger cap that didn't get its bids yet and didn't expand out of its range, as I showed you on the 4 day, what do you think is really happening down here? Like, what are people preparing for at the bottom of the range with all this volume, right? They're probably accumulating. And through the accumulation strategy of some heavyweights, what they want to do is strategically shake people out of their bags so they can accumulate on the cheap. So you need to prepare that for the fact that we could get that sweep to shake people out of their bags, and then they come in and buy on the cheap, and then we get the bounce and the recovery, and we go for another higher high. That's how things work here in this space. Unfortunately, it is the case. So what I would be doing here, guys, honestly, I'm going to be adding another arrow. And not because I'm saying that this is the bottom right now. I'm just saying the safest way to deal with Algorand at the current moment is to get into a 30-30-40. 30-30-40 split. You 30% here, 30%, 40% here, or whatever, however you want to distribute. Some people like getting doubling down as we come down, so they can drag your average cost down more aggressively. But what about if we get a bounce right here? What about if we do eventually get a bounce and break out bullishly out of this symmetrical triangle here? Let's take a look at some oscillators. You can see the momentum is still in trying to get into oversold conditions, guys. I don't like the way this looks. I'll be honest. Because we're stuck in the chop zone, right? If we don't get support in the chop zone here, we're getting oversold. We are. I can see a bullish response trying to come in hot very soon. Obviously, maybe we're going to have to wait till Tuesday as we start the new week. That would be really good. But the bearishness here on the trend oscillator, getting into the bearish control zone, sub 0 right here, is not a good level. Not a good thing to see this EMAs facing down and everything, red histogram bars in the bearish control zone. I'm not happy about that either. So what I'm saying here is we could dip, but what about if we don't? What about if we hold steady? And the only thing that I can say
saying the only reason why I feel like it may be possible, and if you've been here previous cycles and you've seen how altcoin seasons start and how they begin with the rotation, it's so aggressive and it's so quick that you don't even have time to fill your bag. Okay, so I don't know when that's going to trigger, if it's going to be next week, if it's not going to be, who knows when. So instead of trying to time the market, which you know has caused a lot of grief this cycle, trying to time market, zoom out, look at where we are in the chart, look how close we are to the absolute tippity bottom, and you know what? Just DCA 30, 30, 40 and call it a day. If we bounce here, okay, you have exposure. We come down here, you increase your exposure. Congratulations, you have more. You're going to make more gains to the upside. And ultimately, you have to have the convictions that we're not going to break below this bottom. Because if we break below this bottom, Algorand's going to suffer significantly. And then you got to ask yourself, you know, either something specifically happened with Algorand, or maybe this market in general is suffering at the current moment. And who knows what happened to Bitcoin? Who knows what's happening with Ethereum? Who knows what's happening? But ultimately, your stance here in this space, in order to be going long on any project, not just Algorand, is that we are still in a bull run and we are anticipating alt season, and that any dips closer to invalidation should be accumulated. Guys, if I've offered you any value in this deep dive, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description below. Feel free to join that Discord, guys. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free, and you can be a part of the next deep dive that I cover next week by voting on the next deep dive. It's right there in the Discord, and feel free to request any projects that you're interested in. Guys, take care, have a good one, and don't forget, buy the dip.